All righty, that participant number is starting to level off here, so I think we will get things going. So good evening and welcome. I am JD Ross, I'm Associate Dean of Admission at Hamilton, and I am glad that you are joining us here tonight for this Hamilton Hangout focused on student research on campus. I first want to congratulate you on your admission to the class of 2028. And very happy you can join us tonight to explore some student research opportunities firsthand with two of our senior fellows here. Our goal tonight is to give you a broad overview of the kinds of research that happen at Hamilton, and specifically dive into and highlight the projects that tonight's panelists, our senior fellows from the Office of Admission, have had the opportunity to work on during their time here. We're also going to touch on Hamilton's unique open curriculum approach to your academics and talk a little bit about the role of the faculty advising system as well. But without further ado, I would like to ask our each senior fellow panelist to pop off mute for a minute and introduce themselves. Nick, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. I am a neuroscience and cinema and media studies double major. And then I also am a community advisor in my free time, as well as part of the percussion ensemble.
Great, thank you. And Bram, over to you.
Hey guys, my name is Bram. I'm a sociology major and econ minor from Atlanta, Georgia. And beyond this job, I do a lot of research, of course. And then I also work as a volunteer tutor down the hill and I run track and cross country. So those are kind of the other things I do on campus.
Great, thank you. And then one of my colleagues, Associate Dean of Admission, Anna Wise, she is actually hanging out off camera, and she will be available to field any questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom. And she'll answer a lot of those, but if there are some that she feels would be better suited towards the wider audience, she'll pass them along to me, and with our panelists here, we will tackle some of those questions as well. So, kind of to set the stage here before we dive into Nick and Bram's individual projects, there are so many ways that research happens at Hamilton. This can include independent projects. It can include our senior program, where seniors are responsible for a thesis or a capstone project, which I know Bram and Nick are kind of in the throes of right now, actually, in this time of year. There are formal internships with faculty members. Many of these take place during the summer months when we can have upwards of 150 students working on research projects here on campus. And there's been an increasing number of opportunities for our students to engage in significant and sometimes publishable research at the undergraduate level, something that doesn't happen at every institution of higher learning. I think it's important to underscore that, right, Hamilton is an undergraduate institution. We don't have any master's degree students. We don't have any doctoral degree students here who would be otherwise competing for research positions and research opportunities. So as an undergraduate student, you will have access to faculty guidance, to the research possibilities that you might not have a chance to take advantage of at a larger institution where you're also sharing these resources with graduate students. So let's dive in here to our senior fellows and their individual research experiences. I'm going to start, Nick, with you. I know you have had a wide variety. You have conducted research with fruit flies. If I recall, you concussed fruit flies. You've done research with mice, and you've also done some human based research. I know that you worked in the neuroscience lab studying links between stress and sleep. He's also worked and looked at social behavior and patterns of interactions between mice with motor and neurobehavioral deficits. So, Nick, you can explain this probably a lot better than I can. So let's dive into some of your research and also let's talk about how you were able to get connected to faculty to make these research opportunities happen.
Yeah, definitely. I started my research journey in my first year and became known in the admissions office as the fly concussion guy, because I was able to get connected with my first semester bio professor, and he was looking at traumatic brain injuries and the effects of lead on fruit flies with traumatic brain injuries. And so I was able to help out in the lab in my spring semester of my first year, just kind of uh, flipping flies, we call it, essentially getting flies to new kind of tubes so that they can reproduce and continue a fly line to keep it going. And then I also gave flies concussions as well. It's not the most exciting, or I guess good looking thing to be doing, but it was still interesting to do. Um, and then in my sophomore year, I was able to get involved in more human research. So I was getting involved with a professor who I had started getting in contact with over the summer. And she was looking at stress as a general concept and affective neuroscience. And so I got involved in her lab, did a lot of coding for her, which really helped me kind of get far in the game because coding is becoming a much more prominent sort of field in terms of your general sciences. And so that was a lot of fun. I was doing just a lot of experimental design with it, just more little things like helping seniors with their thesis projects. And then, yeah, I kind of kept with that for that year. And then my junior year, I jumped into a different lab. So I got really interested in studying animal behavior, and I reached out to another bio professor who was looking at a specific gene that was causing motor deficits, as well as behavioral deficits in mice. And so I kind of got involved in her lab a little bit, and then I was able to take on a sort of independent project where I was looking at social behavior interactions between mice. And that was a very fun project because I was able to come up with my own experimental design, be able to execute my own protocols, do essentially all of the data analysis for it. And so it really felt like that project was my own to kind of control. So I got involved in that. This past year, I was able to present at the Society for Neuroscience conference on that as well. So it was just a really great opportunity to get involved. But then I also, for my thesis, have gotten back involved in the fruit flies again with my first semester bio professor. And we're studying for my thesis a protein that we have found ourselves in fruit flies that has a link to a protein that's expressed in humans. And so we're trying to figure out what exactly this protein does, where it's expressed, everything like that. So it's been really interesting to be able to work with the flies once again. I'm no longer concussing them, but I am dissecting their embryos, which still isn't a good thing, but it is still very interesting to be able to find new results and kind of exciting results with. But throughout all of that, it's pretty much my sort of access to the research has been just reaching out to people. The professors are very accessible and very open and will kind of go out of their way to tell you what they're doing. We have research crawls now in our science departments that tend to just showcase all of the labs that we have here at Hamilton. And so it's a really sort of helpful thing to get specifically students who are interested in research and who are new to research to get involved in some sort of capacity.
So we have a question here. Did you do your research during the summer, during the school year? Is that for you? I believe it was all of the above, right?
Yeah, so I've been doing research. Most of my research has been during the school year. I was here last summer starting my thesis early, so I did get to stay on campus for the summer and get working on my thesis before anyone else was working on their thesis. So it kind of gave me a little bit of a leg up to start early.
And so let's stick with that thesis for a minute because I know you have something big coming up with regarding that thesis. Talk a little bit about, so every concentration, every major at Hamilton has some kind of a culminating project or a thesis. with it. And Nick's actually going to be presenting his tomorrow. So what is that going to be like for you?
Yeah, it's my presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation that I basically have to sum up all of my research from the past year into 10 minutes and speak on everything that I've done. So it's a little daunting, but at the same time, I'm really excited. I feel very prepared for it as well. I've been practicing it the past couple of weeks and have been getting a lot of insight into how I should be presenting and what specifically I should be presenting. So my advisor, my thesis advisor, has been very helpful in sort of pointing me into a specific direction that I should be going for this presentation, because this presentation is more of like a small summary of what the actual thesis paper is going to be, which I also have to write. And so it's more of just a like highlights of the larger paper that I'll end up sending to my professor.
Great. Well, thank you, Nick. I'd like to move over to Bram now, who has worked here with our Levitt Center for Public Policy on campus, specifically through their Community Impact Fellowship program, on a close project with the nearby city of Utica. He's had an opportunity to help make policy recommendations regarding homelessness, and he is kind of about to wind up his thesis here, where he's looking at trust issues that occur between unhoused populations and their social service providers. So, Bram, I'll let you jump in here and talk about your research.
Yeah, thanks so much, JD. So I got started into this research as a sophomore. I took a really fascinating sociology class with a professor I love here. And believe it or not, her husband was the head of the Levitt Center. It just screams Hamilton. And she recommended me and pointed me in the direction of this research because she knew I wanted to work around nonprofits. So that summer, my job was to canvass nonprofits in the area of Utica. It was a contract with Utica as well because they were seeing a spike in visible homelessness after the COVID pandemic. And they were kind of curious why this was happening. So me, a fellow researcher and a visiting professor, went all around the city, kind of knocking on doors, getting people's stories, hearing what they thought was happening. And then we worked with HUD as well to figure out what their sense of the problem was. Eventually, that kind of culminated in a really long paper that we presented to the city of Utica, including the mayor. And it was a really fun and cool just experience being at a press conference with him. And they've since kind of used that to guide their policy moving forward. After that, it was really cool to feel like I made an impact, but I knew there was kind of still connections to be made. So I decided that, entering junior year, I thought there could be a really cool thesis to be made out of this. So I maintained those connections and I did an ethnography, one of the lowest barrier services in the city. So in this place, you could be kind of on medication, off medication, on substances, off substances, and your access isn't contingent upon past behavior, present circumstances, future obligations. If you want a meal, you can just go. So I did an ethnography, like I said, for about a year and a half. Think like a fly on the wall, and I was going to make a joke, hopefully not one of Nick's flies on the walls, all things considered. So I sat there, kind of just got to know people, build a rapport with them, and ultimately this project has become how is trust established between people who are, in this space who are the most, vulnerable, chronically unhoused people and the service providers they work with, but also telling the service provider story. So how do they feel like they can trust these people who are a lot of times pretty volatile in their behavior? So I've been doing a lot of interviews, a lot of field notes, and my thesis is due in a week. So that's kind of wrapping up really soon, which is scary, but also really rewarding. So excited to present that, or just at least show it to the department.
Now, I know you are taking part in, I believe you said, a panel discussion around some of your thesis. So tell me a little bit about that and how that's an opportunity for you to showcase your work.
Yeah, so throughout this process, there's kind of a running gag in the sociology department that I'm an undercover public policy major. So the Levitt Center is a public policy center in the name. So they wanted me to do something with this report. So I said it would be really cool to have a panel where we collect minds of the community. So one of the panelists is going to be the leader of the church I've been doing these fieldwork observations at. One of them is a retired judge of the mental health court in Utica, Judge Ralph Yanis. And then another one is Ashley Thompson, who is the head of the kind of mental health. She's the new kind of mental health court advocate. So we're all getting together in front of campus on May 2nd around lunchtime. It's open to the public. Anyone can come down the hill, up the hill. And we're going to talk about our experiences kind of working in and around homelessness and what the linkages are to mental health and what we can do moving forward.
It's great, a great opportunity for you, and a great opportunity for Hamilton to be involved in helping the nearby city of Utica with some of their policy issues
Totally.
as well. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit to talk about kind of the academic foundation underneath all of this that makes it possible, and really the open curriculum and the freedom that it gives you to explore here. Nick, I want to go back to you for a few minutes, and you've got kind of an interesting story about the open curriculum and how it has allowed you to pursue interests kind of beyond neuroscience into that second major of yours is cinema and media studies. Talk a little bit about how did that happen? Do you go from concussing fruit flies to film?
Yeah, I came into Hamilton knowing that I wanted to major in neuroscience, and I really wanted to major in something else as well, and I didn't know what that was. So I came in knowing that the open curriculum was available to me, and basically started out taking as many neuroscience courses as I could to knock out those major requirements as quickly as possible. And so by the end of my first year, I got through a little more than half of the major requirements and realized that I was going way too fast to be finished with the major at a 4 year time point rather than like a 2.5 year time point. And so I really wanted to find something else to do with my time, something that was more focused rather than just taking a bunch of random courses that seemed interesting but didn't really have any sort of connection to each other. So my sophomore year, I workshopped a bunch of different courses. I tried to take economics, realized that wasn't my thing at all. I took, what else did I take? I took music theory as well because I'm in the percussion ensemble, and so I thought that that would be an interesting sort of translation of that interest. And then I took intro to film theory, I believe it was called. And I fell in love with the course. I thought that it was very interesting, analyzing films on a deeper level, and decided that I wanted to consider it as a major. And as I was considering that as a major, a director came onto campus and proposed a study away program in Nantucket where they were making a feature film with about, I think it was about a $2 million budget. And so the program had classes for half the semester, and then the other half of the semester, you were actually on the film set making the film either as I was a locations team representative. I was also part of the camera department. I was a set photographer. And so I kind of jumped at that program and decided to go forth with it. So it was kind of a perfect slew of the spontaneity of this program being offered and this intro film theory course that sparked my interest that caused me to just major in film as well. And so I've been able to pretty comfortably balance the two majors. I haven't had any sort of issues with trying to get my major requirements in. It's all been pretty smooth. My study away counted for a lot of my film credits that were kind of heavy hitting. And so it's always been really easy to get through both majors, I would say, even though they are vastly different from each other, and neither of the two majors have any overlapping courses whatsoever.
So switching a little bit to Bram, I want to talk about kind of your experience with the open curriculum. I know your two majors are possibly not as vastly far apart from each other as neuroscience and cinema and media studies, but let's talk about how you kind of settled on those majors and how you have felt that the open curriculum has allowed you to discover things maybe you wouldn't have had a chance to otherwise.
Yeah, totally. So I came in kind of like Nick in the sense that I felt like I knew what I wanted to study. I came in kind of guns a-blazing talking about econ. I wanted to do econ, and I was really interested in finance. I took a semester's worth of econ classes. I loved it. And then the second semester, first year rolled around, and I didn't get the best class registration time, and I didn't get the econ course I needed or wanted to kind of pursue down the path or the track or the pace I wanted. and I saw an intro to sociology course, and I thought, why not? I heard it's a lot of interesting readings. And so, yeah, like I said, I owe my major to it because I took it and fell in love with the discipline. The professor who did that class was the same professor who actually introduced me to the Levitt Center that I mentioned earlier. So it kind of all fell into place. I mean, and like the flow chart of decisions I could have made, I feel like it happened perfectly for me. And beyond that, it's just they are pretty similar, sociology and econ, all the time. The marriage of it is kind of public policy when I think about it. But there's just this great feeling of like when you're in econ class and it feels like you're learning sociology, and when you're in a sociology class and it feels like you're learning econ, you're like, okay, I see why this is advertised the way it does, because the classes do go together in ways you would never expect. Readings kind of speak to one another. You can have a point that kind of transcends the disciplines, and it's really rewarding when you see that marriage of the ideas.
Great, thank you. I want to dive into the advising process a little bit because one thing when we talk to high school students, a lot of the times that we hear is open curriculum sounds really interesting, sounds like there's a lot of opportunities, but it sounds like there's also a lot of responsibility, right, with the open curriculum too, because you have a lot of freedom and choice as well. So, Nick, I'll kind of go back to you to talk about what your experiences were with advising, both at the, on the what classes kind of level to take, and also how advising helped you in terms of your research.
Yeah, I would say my first year advisor and I guess my sophomore year advisor as well, because you have them for 2 years, was very helpful in terms of making sure that I was doing everything I could to get those initial general requirements that we have out of the way. So like the writing intensive courses and the PE courses, which I often forgot about. Um, I was pretty much set up really well to get those done by the end of my sophomore year, and then I went off campus kind of abruptly. Um, but my first year advisor was very sort of set on getting all of the preliminary stuff out of the way so that I was able to make the most of the next years that I had to pretty much play around with whatever I wanted to play around with. If I wanted to do more in neuroscience, do that, and then also pursue other interests as well. So my first year was very helpful in terms of setting me up to be able to do film, and that's pretty much because my advisor was very helpful in sort of organizing that for me. And I would say in terms of being presented with research opportunities, that was more my major advisor. So after I declared neuroscience and film, I declared a major advisor within the neuroscience department who pretty much pointed me to all of the faculty who had research opportunities that I was interested in. And so it was pretty much just a connections game from there, and just making new connections with new professors and seeing what they were doing so that I could get involved in that.
Okay. And Bram, what about you in terms of your relationships with your advisors, both your initial academic advisor and then your major area advisors? What was that process like for you coming in?
Yeah, definitely a similar experience to Nick. I think for the first 2 years, when the advisor isn't necessarily someone in your department, so I had a government professor. Same thing. They'd done this before, and they kind of walked me through. Okay, at first, like I said, I want to do econ. These are the classes that you would have to do, or at least you could do, so you could maintain a steady pace and still have time for a fun, interesting class that might not necessarily fall within the discipline every semester. We got that out of the way, it was check. And then I went on to my, I guess, second advisor who was in the sociology department. And that process has been fantastic because kind of once you have a better sense of what you want to study and then you have the advisor that matches that, it works out really well where you can sit down and it's more of a conversation about, what do you want to study? If you're in that department and you're a major, they'll take advice from you. So maybe they'll offer a course within the next 2 years that's within an interest you have. And even beyond the advisor, just being in the department itself, I'll get emails from a bunch of professors saying, I was thinking of you because I saw something in the news or I saw this headline. I think it links to your research. So you definitely have the advisor, but you also kind of have the department behind you once you choose your major, which has been super cool here.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that you're kind of alluding to the relationship with the faculty members, but what is, what is a typical class size like for both of you in your major areas? We'll start with maybe with you, Nick, and then go back to Bram.
Yeah, I would say that classes in my first couple years they were larger, so it was more around 40 students, and then some like 20 student classes. Your writing intensives are usually capped at about 18, so that can be anywhere from 18 or lower. Um, but yeah, my smallest class was 8 people. And I guess my average size for classes right now is, I would say, probably around the like 15 number. So it's very small class sizes. I know that like specifically your seminar style classes that we have in the science departments are very small. So those are normally about 8 students or so. And that's just because it's very intensely discussion based, and you're doing essentially all your readings beforehand and then coming to class and talking about them. And it's pretty similar to what the format would be in more of your discussion-based courses, which there are a lot of them. A lot of your writing intensive courses follow that format as well. But it's kind of that like extra step of going in depth into the literature that you're reading, that you're pretty much going to like prepare an entire discussion period on beforehand. So it does get to be a little bit more intensive. And with that, the students get to be a little bit more personally connected with the professor in that class specifically.
What about you, Brad? What was your experience like class size wise?
Yeah, again, really similar experience to Nick. So first year, second year, when you're taking intro classes that are required for your major, or even intro classes to unlock courses you might be interested in, those are going to be within the 20, 30, 40 range, especially the writing intensives. Those will hover around the 20s, like Nick said. And then once you get into the upper level classes, like my thesis class, it's split into 2 professors. We're about 8 each. I've had classes of 7 people. And just like Nick said, those will be discussion oriented. So everyone has to talk, gets to talk, however you want to look at it. And that's really nice. And something we always talk about here at the admissions department, and just it carries over into my life, is that people sign for the classes because they want to be there. So if you're in a class of 40 kids or if you're in a class of 7 kids, everyone's there because they really want to be there. And I think it shows whenever people participate. So I've had a great experience with those.
Great. Looking at some of the questions that both came in during the registration that have been kind of coming in, while we've been talking here. What is, we get a lot this time, I know that you both had the opportunity to get involved pretty early on. But being a first year student and expressing interest in wanting to do these things, right? That is very well received by faculty, right? You're not, simply told you kind of have to wait until you're a junior to do research, right?
I can hop in if that's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, professors love what they do, and you're with them because you also love what you do. So your only limit is really just their office hours, and their office hours are posted on their door all the time. So if you have an interest in something, you go by their door. If it's not open, you see what it is, and you go swing by later. Professors are always willing to talk to you about their research, and that will kind of usually snowball into some conversation about maybe what you're interested in. And yeah, you'd be surprised kind of how close. I mean, you're never more than a degree of separation from anyone on this campus. So if you want someone to talk to, you can get there very, very easily.
Had another question that was written in ahead of time was, is academic research really focused on the sciences? And I will say no, right? Not at all. I mean, Bram is living proof that it's not just the sciences, but I mean, we have faculty throughout the humanities. And what we had somebody here in the admission office who was an English and creative writing major who was able to present research they did with a faculty member at a literature conference a year or two ago. Research at Hamilton happens across the disciplines. I feel sometimes you may hear more about some of the science, research that happens in the sciences, but it is fairly evenly spread out across the disciplines. That includes students who are here on campus during the summer doing research with faculty too. So the opportunities are fairly plentiful. Here's a good one because it gets into one of the things I'm always talking to new students about, first year students, and that is underscoring the importance of time management, and how time management can really make or break that first semester. But this person in particular wanted to know how do you balance it all, right? If you want to do research and you're also taking a full course load, and maybe you are a student athlete, or maybe you have opportunities in clubs or extracurriculars that are important to you. I'll pose it to both of you and let you both chime in, but what are some of your techniques for how you make this all come together for you?
Yeah, I guess for me, I I kind of learned very quickly on that I was gonna have to change a little bit of my style of time management. I did not manage my time well coming into college. And I think that, like, generally speaking, like that tends to be the case. It is a new style of learning and a new style of doing work, I would say. And so you have a lot of freedom to be able to manage your time a lot more than you had when you kind of have that uh, split dichotomy of school and then home, because at this point your school is your home. Um, and so I kind of learned to just, whenever I got a chance, whenever I was in the mood, I should get work done. I think that part of the experience of doing something that you love comes with the kind of desire to just do it when you feel like it. And so it has been pretty much just a being aware of deadlines, kind of organizing them into whether it be a spreadsheet or just like a to-do list sort of format. And then when I'm in the mood to do work, I go on that spreadsheet, look at that, and go from there. And then, like, the other thing is, like, you tend to have pretty set days in when you do work too. I know like Sunday is a very big day on campus where everyone tends to get work done. Um, but it is pretty much just like, if you're doing something you love, you'll feel it, and you'll want to be able to do it, and just get through the work.
How about you, Bram? What kind of thoughts do you have about this advice? Like, what has your experience been?
Yeah, really similar sentiment to what Nick said at the end. I would say it's not a cop out, but when you're passionate about the things you're doing, you'd be surprised how easily they kind of fit together. So for me, I also came in and I didn't have the best time management. And I quickly kind of looked over a sign, saw people with their planners, and was like, maybe I should get on that. And I got on that. And now I'm a sucker for Google Calendar. I love nothing more than setting up my Google Calendar each week and seeing what I have, what I do have time for, what maybe I should try to cram in if I can. So yeah, when you have things laid out in front of you, I think it's really easy to see what you can fill that time with. And again, when you're passionate about it, it's something that you want to fill your time with. So yeah, it's never been too difficult. I think past freshman first semester, I compete in athletics here, and it's always the same block every day, so I can always plan around it. There's not a lot of things that here that will just jump out. Things come in advance, so you can always kind of plan for them.
Great, great to think about. So let me see what else we have here for questions. I've got one that I think is kind of pulls at the resources on campus here. What resources are there on campus? I know we have within your individual major. So campus wide, we have the Writing Center and the Oral Communication Center and the Quantitative and Symbolic Research Center that handles many things in the sciences. But within your own departments, can you talk a little bit about the academic resources and class resources that are available to you?
Yeah, I can take this one, I think. Um, so class resources and academic resources that are available to me. I think generally speaking, class resources, the professor does tend to be available a lot. They do post their office hours, and I think they set at least 2 hours a week for office hours. But what I found that a lot of my professors also do is they have a some sort of portal. I think some of them use an app called, like, You Can Book Me or something like that, where they post maybe like 30 or so half an hour blocks of meeting times for you to be able to meet with them. And so you just go through your, like, class bulletin board online, and just click a link and book a meeting with them through there. So if those 2 hours aren't at a point in the day where you have free, you can just book through them. Some of your intro classes will have TAs as well. Some of your upper level classes will have TAs too, and they're never going to be teaching a course. You're always going to have a professor who's teaching a course, but they are going to be there as a resource to hold office hours. They have taken the course before, so they know what the course is like and they know what to expect. So they're also great resources to take advantage of. I actually have office hours in about 40 minutes, so I'm really looking forward to meeting with some of the students I TA for, because they do ask really exciting questions that get me kind of remembering what it was like to take the course when I was taking it. Um, but yeah, I also think that your community advisor is another resource to take advantage of as well. They're not necessarily an academic resource per se, but they're there as a community resource for you to take advantage of if you have any questions or have any sort of uh, lingering thoughts about your academic life or kind of personal situations to a certain extent. We can't solve every little question or every sort of little minute thing that comes up, but we can do the pretty general things. Um, so yeah, I do think that there are quite a bit of resources, but I don't know if Brem has anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit all the points. I think TAs are a bit more common in the sciences, less so the social sciences. So I've had intro classes, I've had TAs just to make sure people are staying, on pace. But beyond that, I mean, the resources themselves and the professors are fantastic. Like I said, office hours are, at least in the social sciences, always posted outside. So if you have a question about a reading, a paper, both, you can always kind of go and just start a conversation up with them.
And now earlier I had mentioned the Writing Center as a resource, and you two are doing a lot of writing here as you're about ready to get these theses handed in. What did you learn? What did you take from your writing intensive classes? And the writing intensives require you to to spend some time in the Writing Center. But what are some of the takeaways that you learned out of there that you have been able to apply as you are putting the finishing touches on your thesis?
mean, I'm still working on this, but one of the things the Writing Center taught me really early on was to stop being super wordy. And so I've been doing my absolute best to not be wordy in my thesis, and it still happens, but I am at least mindful of it. I think that the Writing Center has been great for my writing intensive courses specifically because they have been able to take the nuances of what the course description is, because you go in and you indicate what course you're going in for, and they kind of tune it to that course and tune it to the professors teaching that course. So I've been really able to get a good understanding of what my writing should be in whatever format like I need it to be. So if I'm writing a longer paper, how I should be a little bit more wordy in that situation while still conveying meaningful points, as opposed to if I'm writing a shorter paper and I need to be more concise. So the Writing Center has definitely helped me to kind of fine tune those things and at least be a little bit more mindful of the techniques that I'm using in certain situations.
What about you, Bram? Anything to add about the Writing Center?
Yeah, beyond the kind of the things that the Rank Center kind of teaches you directly, whether that's through your writing about style or diction, because I also struggle to kind of go over word count sometimes of long sentences. I think the Writing Center kind of promotes just a general culture of collaboration around writing on Hamilton, which I think is something that's not always so true elsewhere. I mean, I came from a journalism background in high school, and your paper got edited right before publishing. But beyond that, that was kind of the first time people were putting their eyes on it. And even now, for me, I'm friends with a bunch of comp sci math double majors, but we share writing with each other all the time. So throughout the thesis process, I mean, this is a hung paper, but I'll show them a 10-page section because I want to see if it kind of communicates to them. So it can be tough and you can kind of feel insecure around sharing your writing, but I think the Writing Center and a lot of other kind of cultural things at Hamilton encourage you to make writing a more collaborative process, which usually, in my case, has only ever made it better.
Great, thank you. So we've got a question here, probably not one for either of you because neither of you are pre-med, but it says, any advice about the pre-med track, I will tell you my advice around the pre-med track is to work with the career center early. The career center will you will get a career advisor right when you get your academic or your initial academic advisor when you come into Hamilton. But the career advising or the career office also has a separate advisor and a separate advising track for those who are considering being pre-med. So if you have an inkling around the fact that, oh, medical school might be out in the horizon for me at some point in time, like let the career center know, let your career advisor know, and they're going to make sure that they get you plugged in with a pre-med program advisor who knows about all of the different stipulations, all the different courses, and all of the different things that medical schools, health profession schools are looking for from you. So it's really never too early to start to have that conversation with your career advisor if you think that pre-med might be an option for you. So we're getting ready to wind down here, but I do want to turn it back to Bram and Nick to pose them a few questions, as they are thinking about their experience of coming to a close here after 4 years. So to both of you, if you could go back to your first year self, right? Hit rewind and go back 4 years. What kind of advice would you give yourself about how to navigate life at Hamilton?
It's a good question. I would probably tell myself to just keep pushing forward. I think that to a certain extent, my small first year self was very insecure about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And so I had that dream of neuroscience, but I didn't know if it would ever come to fruition in the way I wanted it to. So looking back on it as a senior now, I would say just continue to take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented because there are so many that I have been presented with throughout my time here. And I've taken a lot of them. I do think that I could have taken more, um, but I also am still very happy with the opportunities I did take and the path that I have been put on because of those decisions that I made. So I think that um, just kind of telling myself to keep at it and keep working hard.
How about you, Bram?
Yeah, I would say like embrace those first 2 years where you haven't picked a major, even if you come in with one. I mean, I look back at my courses back then and like I was taking an Italian course at the same time as a philosophy course, at the same time as an econ course. And I don't know how I was doing that. But like if I could do that again right now, I would love to. Even though I love my sociology courses and my econ courses. But yeah, just embrace those first 2 years because you don't get that at a lot of other schools and you don't get that for your entire time here. So those first 2 years are special, kind of go into that knowing that everyone is in the same boat. Even if you think you know what you want to major in, you could take a random course like me and end up in a totally different place. Uh, and again, all for the better. So I think really just embrace that because it's a pretty rare thing in life.
All right, last two questions here, kind of fun ones for both of you. First of all, best tip on place to go eat or piece of food to eat at one of our dining halls here. And number two, favorite place on campus to study. And remember, because these are first year students, they're never going to overlap with you, so no one will steal your good study spot. So you can you can give away the good information. Yes, tell us all the secrets.
Yeah. I'll start with the favorite place to eat question. I love diner, man. I love a good chicken parm. They
Chicken parm sub is where it's at. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I also I've made it a thing every Thursday they do patty melts. So it's just it's a burger but with like traditional white bread with I think it's Swiss cheese and then some form of horsey sauce. Um and I don't know why Patty Melt Thursdays have become a routine on my schedule, but Patty Melt Thursdays are what I look forward to every Thursday. And so diner is definitely my place to go. As for a study spot, my first year had been kind of defined by the Science Center study rooms that are in the very back of the building. They have one on every single floor. And around dinner time, because they're very competitive spots, and at dinner time, everyone's at dinner, so I would just sneak myself in. Um, I would always go up to the third floor study room that overlooks the city of Utica and just sit there, get some work done, watch the sun go down, and just kind of grind throughout the night until I was ready to leave. Um, and time would fly by. It would be like 1 in the morning when I would get finished, and I'd be like, "Oh, I guess I should probably leave at this point." Um, but that would always be my sort of favorite spot to go. So that would be my big recommendation.
Bram, how about you?
Yeah, I would also say diner, which I guess says a lot about us. I go to diner mostly every day, which, yeah, not great for me, but I love the food. So I'll give you an extra credit one just because I'm super partial to them. There's a space down the hill called Tiffany's, which when you guys get to campus, you'll see there's a rivalry between Tiffany's and Charlie's. And I think I was so passionate about this, I wrote a whole discussion post on Wiser about it because I'm that passionate. Reps at Tiffany's, yeah, it is
Yes.
so great. They know my name. I get to eat it every time I go because I've been going for like 3 years every weekend. So go get coffee, make friends. The waitresses are the friendliest people you'll meet ever. So definitely go there along with diner. And then
I will say though, Charlie's does have that chocolate chip French toast. Oh,
yeah, but Tiffany's has culture. So I'm team Tiffany's all the way. No, I respect everyone, but Tiffany's. And then for study spot, ooh, I would say KTSA. It's the building that like always stands out in tours. It's like a half moon shaped building with all the glass in it. A lot of people think that's like a theater kid spot, but you can go in, obviously it's open to the public. And I think a really cool part of it is when they're doing rehearsals for plays or choir, you can kind of hear like the background noise of people singing behind like three walls. So it's a really, really good kind of white noise to study to, along with the awesome views and the quietness beyond that. So yeah.
oh, great. Well, thank you all for your insight, not just about all of the delicious meals to have, but also, and most importantly, about your research and about your academic experiences that you've had here and the opportunities you've had at Hamilton. I thank you for taking the time. I know this is a particularly busy week as you both have thesis obligations, kind of breathing down your neck right now. So thank you for taking the time out to share some of your experiences with our admitted students here, and to our class of 2028 admitted students. Congratulations again. Thank you for coming out tonight to learn a little bit more about research at Hamilton. And if you have any questions, certainly you can email them to the admission office. I know that both Bram and Nick have email addresses out there on our Ask a Student website. I'm sure they would be fine with you being in touch if you have specific questions beyond this. But again, thank you very much all for coming, and have a good rest of your evening. Bye, everybody.